In the aftermath of World War II, as the dust settled on its ruins, France emerged from the shadows of occupation. The nation was eager to reestablish its military prowess following a dark period in its history. A new era was dawning, and with it came a revolutionary aircraft, the Sud-Ouest Vautour. This sleek machine was a force to be reckoned with some design similarities to the Soviet Yakovlev Yak-28, but a soul entirely of its own. As the crown jewel of France's Cold War arsenal, the Vautour instilled fear in the hearts of Soviet strategists. Its seemingly portly appearance belied its raw power, and it served the French Air Force with distinction for an impressive 15 years. But although the Vautour had its share of shortcomings, another Air Force eventually transformed the aircraft into a lethal night fighter and a fearsome attack aircraft, securing its rightful place in aviation history. The most expected jet. During World War II, the majority of French aircraft factories were destroyed, and engineering teams were left in disarray, causing a significant setback in technical knowledge. Consequently, France had little to no research or understanding of the emerging field of jet propulsion. Starting from scratch in June of 1951, the French Armed Forces Armée de l'Air issued a detailed requirement for a jet-powered aircraft capable of fulfilling multiple roles, such as bomber, low-level attack, and all-weather interceptor. In response to this requirement, the French aircraft manufacturer National Society of Aeronautical Constructions of the Southwest, or SNCASO, proposed adapting their existing SO4000 design. Following successful test flights of the prototype, dubbed the Vautour, or French for vulture, the model demonstrated its promising flexibility to perform all designated roles, prompting the service to proceed with further design development. According to several aviation experts, throughout the early 1950s, the Vautour was considered the most promising twin-jet military aircraft in Western Europe. The Vulture. The Sud Aviation Vautour was a medium-sized combat aircraft, featuring a basic shoulder-wing monoplane configuration, equipped with a swept wing and a flying tail. It was powered by two Snecma Atar 101 turbojet engines, housed in pods located beneath the wings. Most of the internal space in the central fuselage was dedicated to a sizable 16-foot 5-inch weapons bay. However, the Sud-Ouest bomber lacked radar systems, navigational aids, or attack capabilities commonly found in similar contemporary aircraft. In addition, a bombardier crew member aimed the weapons using a World War II-era American-made Norton bomb sight, and their seat was positioned within the nose to maximize visibility. Completing the two-person crew was a pilot. The model featured three major variants: the Vautour 2A attack aircraft, equipped with four 20mm cannons and bombs, the 2B dedicated bomber, with a redesigned and glazed nose assembly for the bombardier, and the Vautour 2N night fighter, which incorporated specialized interception radar in the nose and featured a two-seat design. Moving onward. On October 16, 1952, the first prototype of the revised design, now designated as the SO4050, successfully completed its maiden flight. The rest of the flight test program proceeded smoothly, with a Vautour prototype even exceeding Mach 1 during a shallow dive on one occasion. Subsequently, an order for 6 pre-production models was received. For testing purposes, one was powered by a pair of Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire engines, and another was furnished with Rolls-Royce Avon engines, both of which were British-made designs. The remaining pre-production models utilized the French Atar engine. All subsequent production aircraft used the Atar engine, and with the assistance of water injection, the Vautour had sufficient power to take off while carrying a full payload. An initial fleet of 4 Vautour 2B, the dedicated bomber variants, each capable of carrying a nuclear weapon, formed the original air-based component of the French Air Force's Strike Force under the Strategic Air Force Command, established in 1955. However, early in their service, it was soon determined that the Vautour's use as a strategic bomber was less than optimal. This revelation marked a turning point for what was once the most anticipated aircraft in Western Europe. Shortcomings. Although the Vautour was a competent aircraft when initially developed, it never benefited from sufficiently powerful engines. Even as more suitable power plants became available over time, the French-made engines remained. As an interceptor, the model was soon outclassed by newer designs, and its roles as a bomber and attack aircraft were hampered by the lack of an advanced attack radar and navigation system, which became a crippling limitation. According to accounts, the Vautour's performance was considered to be suitable for use as a stopgap measure at best. In an attempt to maintain the model's relevance, some changes included adopting a buddy pack and external fuel tanks, enabling pairs of Vautours to refuel each other mid-air and thus improving their range. In 1958, the aircraft entered service with the French Air Force, and it would remain in service for several decades, with the final aircraft retiring from frontline service in 1970. However, some were retained for secondary duties until the 1980s. A new life. Although the Vautour never saw combat with France, it received another opportunity for operational service with Israel. Following test flights in early 1957, the Israeli Defense Force chose the Vautour to replace the de Havilland Mosquito in the long-range attack role and to counter the Arab nation's Ilyushin Il-28 light jet bombers. The first Vautour arrived in Israel on August 1, 1957, under complete secrecy. Developed at a rate of 1 to 2 per month, and disguised with French Air Force markings to avoid detection, the aircraft's presence remained a closely guarded secret until the summer of 1958. While both the Vautour 2B and 2A were limited to clear-weather daytime missions, the 2N interceptor model was less restrictive. It could conduct nighttime and adverse weather operations. During its service with the Israeli Air Force, where favorable weather and daylight missions were commonplace, the Sud-Ouest Vautour's lack of advanced targeting and navigation equipment was not as debilitating as it had been in Western Europe. In Israeli service, the aircraft was typically armed with a pair of 30mm cannons, up to 4 removable underwing rocket pods containing 19 air-to-ground rockets each, up to 3,000 pounds of bombs, or alternatively, a maximum of 232 68mm missiles housed internally in the bomb bay. Additionally, 4,000 pounds of bombs could be mounted externally, and the internal bomb bay of a single aircraft could accommodate either an AN-11 or an AN-22, France's first nuclear bombs. Combat at last. 2 Israeli Air Force squadrons were equipped with Vautour aircraft, the Bat Squadron, which operated the 2N variant, and the Knights of the Heart, which operated the 2A and 2B models. Initially, the 7 required 2Ns were operated as night interceptors. Shortly after Vautour deliveries were completed in 1958, the squadrons began their training regimen with the new aircraft, frequently interrupted by live combat action. The first encounter between the French-made aircraft and a Russian model occurred on August 16, 1959, when the Vautours engaged 4 Egyptian-owned MiGs near the Israeli-Egyptian border. All aircraft remained unscathed after the skirmish. Throughout the 1960s, Israel was engaged with Syria in the War for the Water, a series of conflicts aimed at thwarting Syria's attempts to divert Israel's water sources, culminating in the Six-Day War. As the Israeli Air Force's primary attack aircraft, Vautours often targeted Syrian positions. Then, in the largest operation the branch had executed since 1956, the Vautours participated in attacks against the entire Syrian array in the Golan Heights region on November 13, 1964. Although one aircraft encountered anti-aircraft fire, its crew managed to complete the mission and return to base safely. The Six-Day War. Further attacks on the area continued until the summer of 1966. Around this time, all the Vautour models were transferred to the Knights of the Heart, where they were employed as attack aircraft. Their nose radar and other night avionics were removed, with the exception of one aircraft that had been converted to a reconnaissance role with cameras installed in the bomb bay. During Operation Moked, the start of the Six-Day War, Vautours played a crucial role in strikes against Egyptian, Jordanian, Syrian, and Iraqi air bases, targeting the most heavily defended locations that housed numerous Tupolev Tu-16 aircraft. Only 8 Vautours were lost to the Israeli enemy during the conflict. Then, in late July of 1969, in one of their final combat engagements, Vautours participated in attacks on Egyptian forces near the Suez Canal, while Syrian artillery was targeted in August. The end of the road. After more than a decade of service, the new fighters supplied to Israel in the late 1960s by the United States rendered the Vautours obsolete. Eventually, A-4 Skyhawks and F-4 Phantoms replaced the Vautours in all their roles, including photo reconnaissance and electronic warfare. The type was then retired in early 1972, with the Knights of the Heart Squadron re-equipping with Skyhawks. In the end, the Vautour saw no combat use during its service with the French Air Force, despite the initial desire for many more production aircraft. In total, only around 140 aircraft of all three types were ever delivered. The Vautour's deficiencies contributed to France issuing a requirement for a new high-performance bomber aircraft around the time it was in production. This time, Sud Aviation also responded to the requirement, proposing an envisioned Super Vautour. This variant would have featured an increased combat radius of 1,700 miles and the ability to attain at least Mach 0.9. However, the Air Force opted to produce Dassault's proposal, the Mirage 4, which eventually succeeded the Vautour in the bombing role in French service. Thank you for watching Dark Skies. Remember to hit the like button before you go. And for more thrilling content about history's most remarkable aircraft, their missions, and beyond, subscribe to this and all our Dark Documentaries channels, where we publish new content regularly. Stay tuned.